What up, what up, what up, everybody? Welcome back to Today's the Day with Zack Andersen. Let's get into it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Today's the Day with Zack Andersen. What up, what up, what up? Welcome to Today's the Day. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Today's the Day. Much love to everybody. Today's the day. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. I wanted to jump on super quick and let you guys know I'm extremely excited to announce that we finally have the top 10 journals live. They're on today'sthedayshop.com. Make sure you go and get yours. These things are perfect. We got them to the T exactly how we want them. It took longer than we were hoping, but they're amazing. I can't wait for you guys to go and implement these practices and develop these habits that have completely changed my life. So go and check out the journals. Go and get yours today. And I appreciate you guys. Much love. This will be a fun episode. I'm excited.
It will, to your own show as well.
Absolutely.
I'm interested. Have you talked with Bodie about that directly?
Well, when I was coming up on like breaking that, and here's the thing with that is the regional level and title and everything has changed in the company over the years and everything like that. But I asked Bodie, I was like, who's the youngest regional ever? And he's like, oh, me. And if you know Bodie, it's like
he's competitive, man.
Oh yeah, I mean he's
a dog.
He's a different type of person. He's like me at 23, and I'm like, I can do that. I'm like, I think I could do that. Yeah. And I was given the title regional when I was 23 years old. So
that's interesting.
I claim that 1,000%. I tied Bodie for youngest regional at Vivint all day, absolutely. But he obviously did things on a different type of scale.
Anytime you can get to that. So it's funny. I did a podcast with Bodie, 2 or 3 years ago, and I remember him telling me that he actually got off doors. So you know Kenny Cox, but he was getting calls from dudes, and they're like, "Bo, we need you off doors, and like we need you answering the phone and solving problems." And he's like, "It was so hard to get off doors because he's such a dog, man."
It's addicting, and that's I'm in that phase right now. It's a really weird phase actually, where you're more valuable in a different place than you used to be, and you've worked for years to be so valuable in one aspect of the word. And then, you kind of become more valuable outside of that, helping other people. And it's a weird transition. It's a pride hit. It's different for everybody for sure.
It's a lot. It's like, I do want to get into your personal story, but I did an interview with Jordan Benning. And one of the cool things that he said was, after mountains, there's more mountains.
Always.
And it's just like, he was like, you're a crappy rep, and then you're a crappy manager, and then you're a crappy regional, and then you're a crappy VP. But it's like each level of that is like, he's saying you're crappy because when you first start doing it, there's all of these different emotions and there's different aspects of the game, and you're trying to learn how to deal with different aspects of the business and everything. And it's like, it takes a while to adjust to each level of it. And
it's a slap in the face because typically you come from being the best at the last position. You come from being like the top dog, and then you're the smallest manager. And now I ran the biggest team at Vivint. And now I'm like a pitiful regional compared to the regionals. Or if you go compare me to the partners, it's like, it's so crazy. It's so true though.
It's totally true. After mountains, more mountains. So I like to start, and this is going to be cool, man. I was just listening to TP on your podcast, Today's the Day. And I was right in the middle of the Holy Spirit moment, which was dope. Saw TP at the game last night. Got to say hi to him. That's always exciting for me. But I want to start with, and I know your listeners will love to hear about you as well. So I want to start with you, a little bit about how you grew up, family life, what that was like. Should I do the slurp thing?
Yeah, do the slurp thing, please. That was better. We might sample that and take that. That was better than my slurp.
That was good.
We're still trying to get the sponsor. It's coming though. It's coming.
Wait, hold on. Let me help.
There you go. It's perfect.
So, what was like early childhood like?
Yeah. So, I talk about it like super, super openly because I think it's so key and I think it did so much for me. And I always preface with two things. I'm super grateful for it. And hindsight, I wouldn't change a single thing. Right. But there were a lot of things growing up that we can dive into in however deep you want to in any of them that seemed like the end of the world at the time for sure. But growing up was crazy, and I also don't have the best memory, and I have things that I like remember as time goes on. It's kind of crazy.
I vibe with that.
But I grew up in a pretty crazy household. There's six siblings originally, so 6 born into one family, same 2 parents. Cranked out pretty quick, right? So like I have a younger brother a couple years younger than me, an older sister a couple years older than me, and I was the third of 6. So I had an older sister and older brother, and the rest younger siblings. when I was about 7 years old. I mean, up until 7 years old, things were pretty normal. I don't really know how much you remember before 7, but I just remember night games, hanging out, doing my thing in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Parents got a divorce, though, when I was 7 years old, and that was kind of like groundbreaking, crazy, didn't really know what was going on. Kind of fun at first in a very immature way. It's like, oh, I'm going to dad's house. That's sick. Like,
yeah.
He has like, we eat Costco pizza every time and watch the same couple movies, which is like some of my favorite memories. But then my parents actually ended up getting remarried to each other when I was about 9 years old, so a couple of years later. But then they got divorced again when I was 10, 11 or something like that, somewhere along that timeline. And the second time was like,
intense.
Oh no, it was like, not again. Like we just fixed everything. Like, and as a kid, it's always all about you. You don't think about anything else, obviously.
Yeah. So just real quick on that, I'm separated from my daughter's mom, and one of the things I do therapy. I'm pretty open about that. It just helps clarify my mind and peel the layers back. But I've had conversations with my therapist about what happens with the child is children still have an ego, and we don't think about that much.
Yeah.
The problem is if we don't have open lines of communication with our children when they're going through that, their ego tends to kind of blame themselves.
Yeah.
Or their ego doesn't know where to place those situations. So it can be an intense situation.
Yeah, no, 100%. And as a kid, that for anyone who's experienced that, it's a really weird situation or environment to go and be in. It's a very weird, and everyone handles it differently. Like all of my siblings, we're so different from when we're becoming more similar now because we're getting way closer. Everyone's getting over things. As kids though, like people handled it super different. The way I handled it was like shutting down. I went into like a little I just didn't want to be noticed, basically. I figured if I'm not noticed, I can't cause a problem, right? And that's the way that I think I kind of blocked out a lot of things as well. But yeah, I mean, and I've done some things since then. One thing that I've done that's helped for anyone who's listening that's like really struggled with this type of stuff, I did what's called the Hoffman experience recently. This is a total side note, by the way. Amazing experience.
Is that the one in California that takes? Dude, Doug told me about that, and he's like, it's life changing. I'm signing up.
It's insane. You'll love it.
It's only $5,000.
I know. I want to hear all about it when you go. And you go, they take your phone away. I couldn't even explain what you do out there. Like I'm not even gonna try. It wouldn't benefit anybody. But it's completely. I mean, there's no drugs involved or anything like that. There's literally no assistance other than yourself, and you're with this very small group. You have like this. They call him a teacher that kind of walks you through, and you're just kind of dealing with your stuff, whatever that may be. And for me, in my situation, it was childhood. Right. And it was insanely beneficial. And the science behind it's amazing. Basically, they go and they rewire these neuro connections from when you were a kid and you were in this ecosystem that you shouldn't have been in, but it's nobody's fault. But you're not equipped to handle it as a kid. It's like the chemicals your brain releases when certain things happens as a kid is the same as like a life-threatening situation as an adult. So you have all this trauma that really might not have been that traumatic. It's like my parents got divorced, big, like they're still awesome. Both of them loved us. Like there were so many other things that were so great, but that I allowed little things to go and, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, it's interesting that we're talking about this because I'm 47. I'll be 48 in June. I think I'm the oldest person at Legacy.
There we go. All right, but you're dominating. That's all that matters.
I'm doing good. Not in the industry, but I'm just getting into what you're into right now. Like my last 6 months have been really focused on really the last couple years, but I've been really like attacking. People underestimate trauma and they underestimate how they interact with the world. And they're right. Dr. Covey says we see the world as we think it is, not as it truly is. Right. Yep. And so it just makes you more dangerous as a human being, and dangerous in a positive way. It makes you a better, your interpersonal relationships are better. Yeah. The way you interact with humans, especially in our industry. I mean, our industry is based on, leadership through servitude. And the better you understand yourself, the better you understand your traumas, the better you interact with the world, the better you interact with your team members, the better you can recruit, the better you can everything.
And I think this is a conclusion I came to, not to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
At Hoffman, I came to this conclusion that it's like the most important thing to go and produce at a really high level, or honestly just live in a really fulfilled way, whatever you view success as, whether that's being a really good dad or being very successful in the industry or whatever it may be, like a superpower And this resonated with me when I just went and rewatched The Last Dance with about Michael Jordan, is being able to be fully present in whatever you're doing. And trauma completely obliterates the possibility to do that.
100%.
If you don't go work through the stuff on the inside, that's always there, and you can't go be fully present.
Yeah.
And you can't go execute at the level you should in any aspect of your life. And in watching like that, that came to that realization at Hoffman, because you go set intentions, and mine was like, I just want to be present. I want to feel peace, right? Like that's what I care about right now. And I went and rewatched The Last Dance, and Tim Grover's speaking about Michael Jordan, his coach. And he's like, his superpower was he was absolutely present.
Wow.
Always. Like, if he gets on the court, that's what matters. If he's at practice, that's what matters. If he's dealing with this press conference, that's what matters. And I mean, the dude went and excelled in not only basketball. You have to also realize,
he's a businessman.
He did not only excel at basketball. The man is a genius.
He's a goat.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. I think people really underestimate the power of it. So you go through, and I love that you're working on that. I think a lot of people don't. So you're going through the trauma as a childhood, and it is trauma. Trauma's trauma. Like, you know, I had a really tough childhood. I'm not a fan of anybody trying to compare trauma. Like trauma is, you know, equal to whoever's going through it in their own space. Man.
Totally.
Like, so you go through that. Are you the only person indoors in your family?
No. So my oldest brother, he's sold cars for the last 12 years. He crushes it. He's like, that's his thing. Okay. He like loves cars. Yeah. Through and through. My older sister, she's a hairdresser. She lives out.
Is that why you got such good hair?
What? I guess so, right?
Oh, maybe, man.
No, I miss her. She used to do my hair, and now I have to go. My aunt does it now, and I've got friends that help too. But my sister was out there, and then my little brother directly under me, he manages a team. He's going out. It's his first year managing this year, so shout out to Jason. He's
with
managing.
Vivint?
Yep.
Yeah, love Vivint.
Me too. It's been a blessing. Yeah. And then he's co-managing with our little cousin too. That's his same age. So that's a really cool dynamic. My baby brother, and later on in my story, you'll hear about my stepbrothers. Both of them are now coming out as well. So we've got kind of the whole fam.
It's dope. It's a nice recruiting circle.
Yeah, doing our thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, there's just Andersons everywhere.
So you go through the divorce. What do the teen years look like that lead into Doors? How do we get to Doors? Like, what's our...
Yeah, so the transition to Doors was... Well, there's a couple important things that happened before Doors, but...
Yeah, let's hit them.
So I kind of shut down. There was a lot of conflict within the house and stuff like that. But again, like, I wouldn't change anything. What ended up happening was I went through junior high and just kind of coasted. Like, again, if I'm not noticed and I'm just nice and like I guess just...
Under the radar.
Yeah, under the radar is how I flew. But I really wasn't stoked, happy. I didn't have deep relationships with anyone. I started to realize that. Some stuff went down, and I ended up going and living with my dad. It was different school boundaries a few weeks into my sophomore year of high school. And when I did that, I just kind of decided out the gates. I had a few really key friends that I played lacrosse with the year prior that were at this new school at Orem High when I transferred. I was just like, dude, I'm just going to go have fun, and I'm going to go make friends, and I'm going to treat people right, and I'm not going to try and not be noticed. Like, whatever that means. And like I did. I went all in, and I grew up a ton in that sense socially, where I started to really care about people, like more than other people, right? Which was really strange. And that was amazing. I had the best high school experience I think I could have ever asked for. Like I loved it. And I love everyone that I met in high school, and they were super crucial for me.
Yeah.
But midway through high school, along the journey, kind of to put a little perspective, we didn't have any extra money. Not that we were like broke or in poverty or anything like that, but we were not going and like we had Christmases where people came and helped for our Christmas. We were eating Bishop Storehouse food, so our church was supplying our food for a lot of the time. We were helping my mom work her third job to be able to pay the mortgage, me and the two older siblings.
Third job.
Yeah. So my mom was a school teacher. She worked a couple different jobs, and then at night we would go clean big office buildings. And I think I was 13. I don't want to get my age wrong. 13 or 12, 13, 14 at the time. Yeah. And my two older siblings would go as well. And we'd clean these office buildings, and we'd get a treat at the gas station on the way. And this was at night after everything else. And all the kids would be at home with grandma. Or they'd be
so you had work ethic going from back in the day.
I guess so, but not by choice. That's like...
Well, a kid never gets work ethic by choice.
Yeah, I was...
Never.
I was like, actually, like... if you were to ask my dad in high school, and my dad and stepmom joke about it, they're like, dude, we used to ask you like take the trash out, and we were like, what is he gonna do in life? Like, but it's like it's because I didn't care to. Like I didn't care to do certain things, but I cared about other things, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so we did that through growing up, and then in high school, I always worked. So I worked at KT Tape in the warehouse, had a warehouse job for a long time. I worked at Vans in the mall within retail.
Yeah.
Always trying, and I always would offer my friends' parents to do work. Like that was like my number one thing. I was doing chores for Andy Peterson. She like supplied me with money and I was like, but I was working for it. Like no joke, Andy makes you work for your money if you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
And it has to be perfect. She's a perfectionist,
Yeah.
but she's amazing. But then midway through high school, I was over at my friend Alex Dunn's house because Grant Dunn was one of my best friends. We played lacrosse together. And I'd go over there all the time. I don't remember specifically why I was over there this time. And Casey Ball walked in. I didn't know who he was.
How old were you?
This was when I was 15, 16, probably 16.
Okay.
I think I just got my license. Somewhere in that time frame again. This
Yeah,
is where
no,
my
I've
memory's all over the place.
I dig it.
He walked in and he was talking to Alex, and they were in the same neighborhood. They were both at Vivint. Alex was the president of Vivint at the time. Casey was one of the VPs of sales, but more so just a friendly conversation about, I think it was church or just life or whatever. And I'm just kind of sitting there. And Casey like reached for whatever reason, and I looked like a bum. Like I did not look like someone you want coming to your house when you're not there. Like I would probably like be a little bit timid to have hired me for anything. He was like, "Hey, do you want work?" Like, and I'm like, "Yeah, 1,000%, whatever you need."
Yeah.
And at this point, this is when I had both my jobs, my Vans job and my KT Tape job. He's like, "Okay, well, I want you to wash my cars and stock my fridge." I'm like, "Okay, deal." And for whatever reason, the second he asked me to do that, I was like, I'm gonna go do so well and be like, I will be the best fridge stocker he's ever had. I'm gonna go impress this guy basically.
Yeah.
And I did. I took like a huge chip on my shoulder, and I took so much time to make that fridge look perfect with every drink you could imagine, bottled drinks, none of the cheap cans, like any new drink that came out, stocked with 3 different options for water, like everything. And it looked amazing. And then washing the cars was actually, he had a supersonic pass, and I just drove him up to the car wash and got him washed. But the car wash people would see me pull up in a Porsche, then they'd see me pull up in a G-Wagon, then they'd see me pull up in a Raptor. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, I have no idea. And they'd get the full detail. So I was there for like 5 hours total that day.
Yeah.
But anyways, a few weeks into that, he's like, I want you to start reading these books and reporting them to me, and I'll pay you $100 a book. And he was paying me $10 an hour, so that's 10 hours of work if I go read a book. I'm like, done. Like, absolutely. And I kept working for him, and I did it all the way through high school. But I started reading these books. He gave me As a Man Thinketh, Think and Grow Rich, The Richest Man in Babylon, everything. And I got hooked. And in my senior year, I had worked my schedule out. I had 6 library aid periods. I don't know if that's even possible anymore, where library aid meant you go and chill in the library, literally. So 6 of my 8 periods was library aid. So I was just reading books for Casey in there, and I was going and reporting. We were having a fireside, and he took so much time to go and help me. And at first, I was doing it for the $100, but then I started realizing like the way I looked at the world completely changed. Like that was like my rite of passage into like, okay, like life is not only about going and having fun with people. I think I did that really well, and I kind of mastered that.
Yeah.
Life's also about going and making something of yourself, making sure your family and there's generational wealth to take care of the people underneath you.
Yeah.
And you never have to struggle for money. Money doesn't mean or make everything, but if you don't have money,
it makes a difference.
It can be really hard.
Yeah, I agree.
And I had always realized that. That's why I always held jobs, and I was really good at saving money. I could live really cheap. Like I was the friend after football games, whenever I'd go to In-N-Out to eat, I would take a packed PB&J, and I'd go for the memories, hang out, but I would not eat In-N-Out. I would not eat out ever unless someone was paying for me.
Frugal.
Right? Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of had to be, frankly. That was.
Yeah.
And that also wasn't my choice, right? When I got into high school, my dad was like, "Okay, I'm going to give you a lunch salary because you can't get school lunch." I'm like, "Okay, sweet." He's like, "Yeah, school lunch is like $1.15 a day, so that's what I'm going to give you." And I'm like, dope. And I was like getting like $6 a week. So I would choose a couple days to go spend $3 a week, and then the rest I'd figure something else out. Right. So
how much time? Yeah, no, I vibe with that. I had actually a really troubled youth, but also in poverty. My mom was an alcoholic. So different circumstances, but similar. So I vibe with what you're saying. It's like, I remember, sometimes there being no food in the house, and it's like, when you're little, it's like, you're just trying to figure things out, man.
Yeah.
It's intense, but it also, I was just watching something, man, I can't remember what podcast Casey was on, but he was talking about how well they did in 2008. And he said the reason that we succeeded was because we're so scrappy.
Yeah.
And what I think about stories like ours, where they're very different but very similar, is that it makes you scrappy. Like it makes you tough. Like it's a different, you know, you see some of these guys from Cache Valley too, and they're farm boys, man. And they grew up working 10, 20, they're scrappy too.
Exactly.
It's just this grit, you know? So there you are with Casey. And it's funny, dude, because I've seen Casey post pictures of fridges on Instagram and socials. He cares
about it.
He does.
And he knows for a fact his daughter does it right now. My little brother did it for a little while too.
Nobody does as good as you.
Nobody. I would say that wholeheartedly. There's no shot anybody stalks it as good as I do.
Dude, it's like, you know, I was just sitting there thinking how amazing. I've spent very little time around Casey. He's been one of my, I would say, digital mentors. I mean, when I was at Vivint 2017, obviously he was the VP and I got to spend some time with him. But I've just been such a follower of Casey because he's so inspirational. And I was just thinking when you were talking, you know, and I still talk about Casey in my correlations and I send people his podcasts and I'm always trying to like push Casey on people because I'm like, this dude is the vibe, man. This is like, and I was just thinking how amazing it must have been. You know, how old were you? 15,
all the way
16?
from 14, 15, 16, all the way up until now even. Like I was with Casey, like he still to this day takes time. He was breaking down how to read a one-pager for investments because I told him I was a little bit confused. And like he printed out 4 one-pagers. He said, we're going to sit here until you understand every term and you can break it down for me.
Wow.
And like that was just a few days ago. And like he is still, you know what I'm saying?
And here you are, the youngest regional at Vivint. I mean, it's obviously tied to, you know, how old are you now? 23?
I just turned 24. Yep, just turned 24.
I mean, you know, like I think there's obviously a direct correlation to having that time spent with, what a blessing, man. Like what a blessing.
Yeah, dude, I've gone out and said it so many times, how big of a blessing. Like, it's insane how big of a blessing it was. And like, I owe everything to it. But on top of that, what I also like to stress, because I don't like excuses and I don't want someone to have that as an excuse. If you don't have that, it doesn't matter. You still have Brian Tracy. You still have Zig Ziglar. I've spent more time with Brian Tracy than Casey Baugh.
Yeah.
By a long shot. I've spent more time with John Wooden than Casey Baugh, right? Not because I've ever met him or I ever will meet him, but because, and Casey catered me to think this way. That's what Casey helped with. He gave me the
digital
way of looking
mentors.
At things.
Me too, yeah.
Right? And now I have these mentors and these friends that I've never met and I will never meet, right? Anyone who's passed away, I will never meet, but they've changed my life. And I took it upon myself because you have no idea how many people Casey offered that to. Like to read a book and get $100. He offered it to football teams, church groups, and no one ever went.
No, when you were saying that, like, listen, anybody who hears that is like, oh, this is why this guy made it. I mean, that's ridiculous. You made it because there was an opportunity and you took it. I have managers now today, grown men. And I will offer, I do what Casey does, but I'll offer them $200 because, you know, they make good money. Yeah. And I'm like, $200 if you read Crucial Conversations.
Yeah.
Did you ever read it?
Never got around to it.
Well, never got around to it. And it's like, so, you know, at that age, taking the opportunity, you know, I think there are more opportunities presented to people that they completely miss because of fear, because of laziness, because of, you know, the way their mind works, the way they're still kind of rooted in, you know, a fixed mindset and they can't see the forest past the trees. But there you are sitting with Casey and you actually go read the books. Yeah. I agree with the digital mentors. And I actually got that term from Casey somewhere along the line. He's like, have digital mentors.
He says you're irresponsible if you're not educated in 2023 because there's
100%
podcasts, YouTube videos, books, everything.
So that's an amazing experience. And so you go through that. What age do you start doors?
So my senior year of high school was coming up and Casey kind of became like a really good friend, a boss, a mentor, just in life too. Like he would always ask me how I'm doing with my family stuff, with girls, with school, with friends. Am I staying out of trouble? Like he always kept up. And I actually, one thing I will credit myself for, I did stay out of trouble. Like a lot of my friends were getting into trouble and I was always there and I love my friends, but like, it just wasn't my thing.
It's not your vibe.
It wasn't. And not at the time. Like I didn't feel the need to go and do anything, in that light. So coming up senior year, I grew up, obviously Orem, Utah is the Mecca of the LDS church. And everyone is going to serve missions. And I grew up in the church, but I fell away in high school a little bit, I would say, and kind of like figured my own things out. And I went to Casey. I'm like, hey, I don't think a mission is like my thing, but I don't know what to do. And I kind of had it in my head that I'm going to go to school until I know what there is better to do. Like, until I have something better to do, I will go to school, because I don't want to be the guy who doesn't do anything for 10 years. Yeah. Like, that was what I knew from the books, probably, and from Casey. And I was also inspired, like, dude, I was surrounded by, like, you got to keep in mind when you don't have $1 to spend on like lunch or anything extra. I had everything I needed. I never went like hungry. My parents took great care of me. I want to stress that, but then you walk into a $12 million house. Yeah. And you see abundance. Yeah. You see like abundance, and you see how these people live, and you see how they're traveling, and you see the experiences they get to have, and what they get to do with their kids. Like, I wanted it for sure. And like, that was a huge initial driving force. Since then I've discovered others, but so I went up to Casey, and I was just like, dude, I don't know what I want to do. And he's like, you should absolutely sell. And I knew he was the VP. I was kind of hoping he'd like plug me in somewhere at Vivint. No, he said, I think you should sell. And that was it. That was the extent of it. I'm like, okay. I had buddies doing pest control, so I went and met with companies. I went and met with different regionals at Vivint. I met Brad Rossiter, who I'm extremely grateful for. Had a phenomenal experience meeting him. My buddy introduced me to him that was out selling with him the years prior. Brad's great. He's amazing. And that's who I decided to go with. So right after the senior all-nighter, right after graduating high school, me and a few buddies, we packed up and drove out to Memphis, Tennessee, which was like shell shock for me, insanity. It was crazy. And I had I had really low self-confidence at this point, like true self-confidence, very, very low. Like, social anxiety was really bad when it came to like being in any way invasive, which our job is pretty much 100% invasive. Extremely. Yeah. And so I like, there are times where I would knock doors at somewhere, and I would literally I would start freaking, and I would leave. If I heard people coming to the door, I would just freaking get out of there before they see me getting away. How old were you? I was 18. Yeah. So my first preseason trip, I was 17 years old. Yeah. And I went on one before summer to Greeley, Colorado. Baptism by fire. Yeah, 100%. And that year, that's how we do, man. It's the best way to do it. And that year was a crazy roller coaster, but it was amazing. And one thing I did do really well is like, I didn't trip about it. Like, I was like, I've already been broke. The worst thing that happens if this doesn't work is I stay broke. Like, and my life is freaking dope back home anyways. I don't really care. Yeah. Which was a blessing and a curse. But I coasted through the summer. It was really hard. Had all the hard days and everything. My friends left midsummer, and I was out of town at the time picking up the friend that I mentioned prior, Grant Dunn, from his mission. And they took all my stuff because they thought I was going to go home with them. But Casey, Brad, and Alex didn't really give me the option to not go finish what I started. Yeah. Which I'm eternally grateful for. But when I got out there, I was broke. I was not performing well. They took my blanket and my bedding, so I was sleeping with a towel where we pushed our beds together, me and Nate, just for whatever reason. It was fun. He had his blanket and stuff, and then I had a towel that I would have to sleep with. Yeah. And I would have to only shower whatever. So it was dry at night when I went to bed, shower in the morning, use it. So it was dry at night when I went to bed, which was crazy. I remember a point when they went to the Flying Saucer is what this place was called. My who's now my co-manager's name's Caleb's like, yo, we're going to the Flying Saucer. Let's come on. Like, we're going out to eat basically on a Saturday. I'm like, no, bro, I can't. And I sent him a screenshot of my bank account. There's $16 in it. And this was after I was working all summer. Yeah. But anyways, the summer ended. I ended up being the lowest producing rep in the region. How many did you do this? 26 accounts. Yeah. And I stayed. I did a lot of those towards the end. But 26 accounts total, and I made $12,000. And for me, I was like, this is sick. I thought I was rich, and I'd say it all the time. People are sick of hearing it, but I literally went and ordered AirPods. I remember how crazy it was for me to be able to order AirPods. And I got them. So when I got back home, I was going to school. I was taking 17 credits at UVU. I thought I was rich, rolling around with my AirPods, and I thought it was dope. Yeah, you're a baller. The guys that left. Yeah. Where are they? They're doing their own thing. So they endorsed? No, they're not endorsed. No, they're successful. Yeah, absolutely. So one of my friends, they've played their cards really well. They have. And one of them specifically, my best friend that was out there with me, his name's Coy, such a stud. Just not his thing. Not doors. Yeah, not his thing. But he's very hands-on. He runs an estate management company. He owns a cold plunge company. If you've heard of King Coy, I just bought it. It's at my house. There you go. It's plugged in. That's Coy. That's my boy. The last 3 days I've been here in Utah, I've been missing my cold plunge, man. That thing is if you want to go, text Coy. He's got them in his warehouse. He'll let you go use them. I should have. Yeah, but so my hat's off to him. They took their own path for sure.
Well, kind of how many guys though? So I just want to point in there like a testament to, how many people do we see quit on themselves? And it's like, quitting is when you start quitting becomes a habit.
100%.
And I do vibe with people going off and being successful and doors not being there. You just had Bucket on Alchemy, and it was funny because he's saying, like, I hated door to door. Like as soon as I got in it, I just wanted to do as good as I could and get the heck out of it.
Yeah.
I love it. And so I can vibe with people not being their like lifelong ambition.
Exactly.
But I've seen also, like, I think back to, so John Taylor was, I don't know if you know John.
Yeah.
He was my original recruiter, regional. And, he wine and dine me at Joe's Steakhouse to get me. But I think back to that day, and had I not made the choice to join Vivint, or had I not, through the, I was actually rookie of the year my first year, did 213 installed. But there were so many times in that year where it was
almost as good as me my rookie year.
Almost, yeah. It was so hard, and it was so I was 43, man.
Yeah,
it was difficult, and I think if I would have quit, and my life is so different, and so like hats off to you, man.
Yeah, I will touch on that. Like I for sure, could I go back in time, I would encourage him not to quit. Like I truly believe that's a habit, but he's obviously gone and made it work.
No, they have.
But I think like, dang, what if? Yeah, what if he didn't? You know what I'm saying? And there's a million what ifs. So I'm glad he is where he is.
Yeah.
But yeah, 9 times out of 10, somebody who quits at something is going to quit at everything. And how you do something is how you do everything. And it's crazy. Like I tried to quit. When I say Alex Brad, in case he didn't let me leave,
I believe it.
I literally was on the phone like, hey, I got to get back for syllabus this week. I got to make sure my car is good. I got to get in my student housing. And they're like, no. What date did you say you were going to be out there? I'm like, well, August 25th.
Hold your mud.
Like, I got it. And he's like, no, you're going to be out there till August 25th. Then I'm like, no, but you got to like hear me out. Like, and I wanted the answer so bad. I'm like, yeah, man, good work. Go out next summer and crush it. Right. None of them gave me that answer. And I'm so grateful for that. Because had I quit, like I don't know where I would be. And like that, finishing that summer was one of the hardest things I ever did. The weather was terrible. I was getting I was a foot soldier in Memphis. When it rains, it's just gross. It's just dirty.
Yeah.
I was not getting into houses very often, obviously. I hadn't had a very good track record. Everyone went home. So there's like 4 of us left. And I'm out there in Memphis, Tennessee still my first year because they said I couldn't quit. And luckily I took what they said and I gave weight to it and I followed through.
Man, what it teaches you though, this is the thing too, right? It's not just reading books. It's not. That's part of it. It's the application of knowledge and in most things successful, from everything, from the way we eat to, having dedication in our spiritual lives, having dedication in our physical lives, our mental lives.
Yep.
It's hard. Like getting better and excelling is a difficult thing, right? And so, reading books, but then learning how to do hard things
on that,
combined.
Though, being broke is hard too.
Super hard.
Being lazy is hard too.
100%.
Being fat's hard too.
Way hard.
You just get to choose your hard.
That's right. And most people don't. So no, I vibe with that. And I'm just thinking back to, my first year was one of the hardest years. And I was in it was the 2017. So I came into Vivint.
That was my first year.
It was. Yeah, me too, dude. So the 17 year was the first year for the GM program. I was
chasing you. You have no idea. I had you on my watch. I was gunning for your head.
Look what we've done, man. I mean, like it's an amazing path when you stick with it. And I just think back to that, like, I remember sleeping, like waking up, bro, my feet would touch the ground and I would be like, gotta get a deal. Like I was so obsessed with, and I was in the GM program. So it's just this kind of like marathon of pain my first year, like sleeping in my car with headaches, like, cause I'm not sleeping and just like knocking like tenaciously on doors. Like, but the grit that you get, and what I tell people now is it's like, would you live the hardest 1 or 2 years of your life if it would change your life for the rest of your life? And then when you compound what we do here, right? Because ultimately we become successful because we do excel as human beings. We understand the law of the lid. We gain knowledge. We continue to gain knowledge. We have inspirational people in our lives that say, hey, this is how we grow. But then that applied work ethic plus the knowledge compounds into this. And, I always heard in Vivint, Oh my gosh, everybody would say it. Taylor would say it. Poppy would say it. Casey would say it. It's like, don't overestimate what you can do in a year and underestimate what you can do in 5.
Yep.
And it's so true, man. Like when you look at it, because you're in that first year, you're just in the pit. You're just knocking. You're a grunt. You're a straight grunt. Like you're seeing regionals come in and these dudes, and you're hearing dudes' door pitches, and they seem like some kind of Jedi warrior on a door. And you're like, dude, what is this? And you're just like,
you're just trying to hold a conversation.
Yeah, man. It's like, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. But you do a couple of years that plus knowledge, man. And then boom. So your first year, tough as heck, but you make it. And then what do we look like moving into 2 and 3? Yeah,
moving into 2, this is another so that first year was like my struggle year. And then there was a certain point in time where I started probably a 4-year like on fire run that it almost seemed seamless. And I'll explain that. But that offseason, I got home, started taking 17 credits in school. I
had some AirPods.
Had AirPods. I thought I was rich. Literally, I would make a point to put my AirPods in to walk into class. Like, I don't know why I thought it was so sick.
External validation.
It was probably the biggest purchase I'd ever made. I don't know, dude. I don't know.
I vibe with it.
It was dope. And I'll still rock with it. It's still dope. But 17 credits, so I was pretty busy. I was still attending like the trainings. I would say I was like I was like that rep that you have where you'll never really expect anything of them, but they're also not going to go be a headache. Like they'll show up, they'll be there. They're not complaining. Be a headache. They're not going to complain. And there were 2 things that really went and completely changed my life. February 13th in that off season, I sat down with Casey and I was just like, it was like a mentor meeting for Vivint. Like I thought it was like a game planning meeting. Like he's going to go help me get better.
Yeah.
And he literally sat me down and he wrote up like all this stuff. He showed me like what managers can do, like what it looks like. And then at the end, we got super real. And he doesn't express disappointment ever really. But he basically told me, he's like, dude, you literally have the golden ticket. He's like, if you're going to do the job, do it or don't. And I was like, okay, got it. Like, Roger that. You don't need to say anything else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And from that point on, I changed everything. I made a 5-year plan. I decided I had 1 preseason account because we went to Nampa, Idaho for 2 days. That was it. We got robbed while we were up there. This dude broke into our hotel. It was crazy.
Jesus.
It was wild. But anyways, got one preseason up until that point, and I started setting these goals that were just terrifying. But I trusted Casey.
Yeah.
And like I was not going to let Casey down. Like I didn't care about the money. I didn't care. Like this is when other things became more important. But he also, at the end, he's like, you can do it. He's like, you could be a regional. 100% you could be a regional. And I didn't think I could. I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, maybe I'll go sell 60 and then I'll come to school again. Then I'll go sell 80 and then I'll come to school again. But I kind of flipped a switch and I went full time. So I started knocking. I had Fridays and Saturdays off. I'd throw my freaking uniform on, stop at McDonald's. It was right by my place.
This is preseason?
Drink a bang. Yeah, it was preseason when no one was doing preseason.
Yeah.
And I knocked Utah and I made a goal to sell as many I sold the prior summer in preseason. So I went and sold 26 on the dot preseason accounts. That off season, went out the next summer and sold 175. The second thing though that changed my life right before that summer was the home opener. And I was at the home opener with Brad, who's my regional or my upper. And then we were there with Jeremy Bell, who was a regional I met with that told me I wouldn't do good. And I only say this now because I love Jeremy now. Like Jeremy, I understand him now. He's a really cool dude. But when I sat down to meet with him, he's like, yeah, like you've never done anything. Like good luck. Yeah. Basically. And I just didn't vibe with that at the time. Because I was like, just be nice, bro. Just be cool.
Yeah.
And I was there. It was me and Brad and him and one of his better rookies. This rookie did like 85 or 90 his rookie year.
Yeah.
And we'd both just come off our rookie year. And they, you know how everyone is in the industry. Everyone's competitive or whatever. Super. And Jeremy started kind of poking at me. And like I was like so incredibly mortified and embarrassed. Like I'm like, dude, like I know I sucked. You don't have to say anything about it. And then he like started joking about putting me and this other guy head to head. Like this summer, like let's make a bet. And Brad, without even blinking, he's like, okay, done. He's like, Zach will outsell blank $5,000 and put his hand out to shake Jeremy. And I was like, I was terrified. I'm like, no, I won't. I'm like, you dumbass. I'm like, what are you talking about? But shook his hand. Jeremy still hasn't paid, by the way. And that's ongoing. So Jeremy, $5,000 whenever you got it paid to Brad. But that was like, dude, when I say like, both of them believing in me way more than I believed in myself. Like I locked in and I went and like I doubled that person. And that was, I didn't want to beat him.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do 10 more. I didn't want to do 20 more.
Dominate.
I was like, every day he sells 1, I'll sell 2. Every day he sells 2, I'll sell 4. And I like lived, I didn't even check what my team was doing. Like the people I was with, I only checked what he was doing. And he doesn't even know that. So there's no hate towards him or anything.
No,
he was just there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a big level up experience. And then from there, that started like a 4-year streak of just like, when you get into the groove and you get the swagger and you have the plan and you're executing and you're so deliberate and you're so disciplined and it's so clear.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what happens. And like a lot happened. When I was 20 or 19 years old, I got stress-induced shingles. Like you don't get that till you're 70.
Yeah.
Like when I went to the doctor and they saw it all breaking out, it's the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life. And like, it's the craziest thing. We were out in Sykeston, Missouri. They went to this terrible hospital. They gave me the medications and I was in pain for like a week straight. Didn't know what it was. I called my stepmom, called my mom, I was like, I don't know what's going on. Like my whole body hurts every time I do anything.
Yeah.
And went to the hospital and they told me what it was. And they're like, yeah, you need to be in bed 3 days on this medication. Like if you get touched, like your whole body hurts. Anyone who's had shingles will know exactly what I'm saying. But it's a nerve infection basically. So it can only break out where nerves start and it stays in one section, but it affects your whole body. And I remember I was in Sykeston. There was 5 of my guys left. It was extension. And these other 4 guys, like I was like dragging them along. Like I had like this militaristic way of running things where I was like, no, like if you don't have school, you're with me. Like we're doing it. Like, and these guys were miserable. I don't even know if they were working. Shout out to those guys like for being there. I was making them journal every morning.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like the only one selling every day. And I would not let our team go a day with a 0 on the board. And I remember I went to the doctor at like 10 a.m., got back to the apartment or the Airbnb at noon. My guys all went out at like 1 and I went to bed. I took the medicine, I went to bed, and it makes you like crazy tired. This medicine, it like drains you. I went to bed and I remember I woke up at like 5 in like a sweating panic, checked the mobile report. God knows why, because that's the most important thing, obviously. I'm like dying. Yeah. We were at 0 and I like freaked out. I don't remember this at all, but I freaked out and I started knocking the neighborhood in my t-shirt. I was wearing an authentic t-shirt from Casey Ball Time, my slides, no hat, no badge, nothing. And I sold an account. And I have a selfie with this chick. The only reason I know it is because the next day I checked the mobile report and I was on it. And I had a picture in my phone because I take a picture with all my customers on her door. I never even went inside.
Yeah.
I sold her and she was getting installed the next day. And like that was a crazy time as well. So there were ups and downs along the whole thing. But I started a 4-year, I'd call it like a heater, where I was just like,
well, it's when it clicks, right? Like, my first year on the doors, I was just terrified, man. I was honestly terrified. I had left a job where I was in transportation. I did sales for transportation. So like, the MGM account, the Caesars Palace, where anybody would go for mass transportation.
Yeah.
Those were the clients I was trying to line. And then they would just book their people in my limos.
Yeah.
I made, 110 my last year there, and then Uber and Lyft came in. And so I went into doors and I was zeroed out. Like I was no paychecks. I had a 3-year-old daughter at the time, and I was just terrified. The whole year I was just like, I'm not going to sell my house.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there with John Taylor, and I'm like, well, I feel like if this dude can do it, and there was some other dudes, and we had some beasts. Pat Mendez was in the office. Jeremy Moriello was in the office back then. Justin Mott was a dude that was in the office back then.
All these names, that's crazy.
That was, and we had this little squad of hitters, man, and it was like, it was funny. There's a story. So when I started, John was like, okay, we knock Monday through Saturday. And I'm like, okay. And that was just what we did.
Yeah.
And core was at 9 or 10, depending on if it was daylight savings or not.
Yeah.
And then you just go knock, and then you knock till 7, right? So you're knocking just a lot.
Yeah.
And that's just what I did. And, I'm just programmed. Like I just work. Like if you say that's the job, then I just go do the job.
Yeah.
And I remember when Blackstone bought Vivint, HR sent John somebody had snitched, and they sent John a thing, and they said they're 1099s. You can't make them work 6 days a week. Yeah. And he was like, well, but still work. Yeah. And so he did, and it was like that whole year was just terrifying to me because, it hadn't clicked yet. I didn't know, I saw guys, and it's tough, dude. You see, Seabaugh fly in and talk, and you're like, this dude is like from another planet, like human.
Yeah.
And then, Mendez comes in, and I remember one day, and we're like, oh, we're going to mess this dude up, man. We're going to mess him up. He's like, go. And we started throwing objections at him, and he's just like, bam, bam, bam. He's a beast.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking like, oh my God, this guy's so crazy. Like there's no way to be at this level.
Yeah.
And that whole year was just terrifying.
Yeah.
And then I got into my second year. My first year I made like 130 grand. My second year I made like 190 grand. But my second year started to click.
Yeah.
Because at first it's just the money. You're just like, it's what you're saying. The tangible thing originally is the money.
Yep.
And you just want to get that. But then you're around these guys. And this is what I tell my people now is like, there's an old saying, don't focus on the money. Try to want to be a millionaire. Want to be the person who knows how to make $1 million.
Yeah.
And so you see all these people who are doing what you're doing that are in the game, that are just kind of leading through servitude and doing Sunday planning and working really hard, and they're scheduling and they're recruiting and they're reading and they're doing all these things.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, I really start to see the wealth. And so I vibe with what you're saying, because in my second year, like the game kind of clicked.
Yeah.
And that's where I really started to take off. Like my methodology took off.
Well, dude, going back to what you just said, that is probably the best advice you could give someone that owns a business or that is in the industry that we do. Money comes second.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do everything else, the money comes. Because guys, this is also why you go see guys within the industry that have never been in a company 4 years. They've never been in a company longer than 2, right? Yeah. Because they get so fixated, or they get so worried. I've seen people walk away from $1 million opportunity over $2,000.
Yep.
And it's like, dude, you're psycho.
Mm-hmm.
Like you are missing the mark.
Yeah.
And it's such a drop in the bucket. There are plenty of times where I could have gone and got all worked up over a certain hold or a certain whatever. That would have cost me so much more than it would have paid me to go
millions. Binning, I loved my interview with Binning, and I'm in solar obviously, and he said what guys think originally is it's a really immature way to look at the industry in any of it, pay scale. But redline does not equate to what's in your bank account. What equates to what's in your bank account is the long-term relationships, right? And it's like the ability, and why long-term relationships, and why loyalty, and why commitment. Well, because when we have an ultimate commitment to what we're doing and the people that we're with, the problems that seem so big and insurmountable to other people it's just a small anthill, and I'm going to get over it. But where they fail to realize what equates to what's in my bank account is that long-term relationship, because what we're doing together when we're on teams, like we are in different companies, but we each understand these relationships, is we're building massive, solid foundations that we can build the tallest building on together over time.
Which takes consistency and
years.
It doesn't just happen.
Yeah. And that's where the wealth comes from. And it's not just and people think that money's the only way to get paid. And it's actually the least way to get paid. Knowledge is the best way to get paid. And like walking through hard times and difficult times and building together and recruiting together and selling together and doing all the things that we do for long periods of time is what gets people to that multi-million-dollar level, the investment levels where you build that trust with people. I mean, look at Sandlot Partners. Those guys are in that because they spent 12, 13, 15 years together at Vivint building those relationships. And then we look at these guys, they're some of the goats in the industry.
Yeah.
And what was the key factor? It wasn't a paycheck. It wasn't a back end or a couple back ends or a summer or a couple recruits. It was that long-term relationship and the tallest building that you can see. So
exactly.
Super dope, man.
I love that.
So you click through and your 4 years is like, bam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So tell me about some of the pinnacles of that.
So pinnacles, like, dude, when I say it was like I was just on fire and it's a blur, and like since now, like you talked about, you get to the certain level where you are the best and then you suck at something, right? Now the level I'm at, I'm back to that level where it's like, okay, back to the freaking whiteboard, go and plan out. I've got to go and figure out how I'm going to go and do this and become the best at it type thing, right? And I'm struggling with it. And that's why I say I was on fire for 4 years after that, because like truly from rep to manager, I feel like that I loved it. Like I freaking loved it. Managing one office, like I've managed an office with 80 reps in one office, which is insane. I've managed an office with 36, where our per rep averages were over 115.
It's good luck.
Which is crazy. But then when you manage, so it's like I've been through all of these different things. But I'd say some pinnacles are like when I first started seeing other people. Like I remember one year I got a back end check over 250 grand. I don't even remember what it was. I know it was over that, because it was my first time, but it was over that. And I was like, oh, cool. Like I saw it hit my bank account, right? And I was like, dope. Like that was the amount, that was the range of emotion I felt was like dope. But then I remember very specifically this kid that I brought in got a really tough upbringing. Financial situation was not good. Family situation was tougher. And his back end was like 22 grand. And like I'm explaining it to him, going through it, and he just like breaks out into like tears. And like my range of emotion, then I started crying. Like those are the pinnacles now.
Yeah.
100%. Those are the pinnacles now. And being able to see my guys go and do things they could never do. And like my guys are now getting married. Like my OGs are now getting married. My little brother's married. Like, and just like in the moment things seem so tough, but the pinnacles are always when I see other people break. Like when I see them break like this barrier in life.
Yeah.
And for some guys that's making 20 grand.
Yeah.
For other guys that's making their first 6 figures. For other guys that's like being able to go and pay off their mom's credit card debt. Right? Like that's the stuff where that gets me super fired up now. Those are pinnacles well over running the number one producing team or anything like that. And we love those. And I love, like, we have internal beef within the company. Like we have teams that headhunt us, we headhunt them. We've had drama, like the whole 9 yards, of course. But like the real stuff that actually like keeps me going and gets me stoked. When you ask why I love my job, that's why.
Yeah, I vibe with that a lot. I've had a lot of those. I've had a lot of those stories with my team members and myself included. I mean, breaking through my own barriers of like, sometimes I just equate it to like, I feel like, a fixed mindset. I always equate it to people are just like in cement shoes in life and they just can't see more. And I remember when my light turned on, and I remember I watch other people's lights turned on, and it's a pretty amazing thing. So how many guys are you running right now?
So right now we've got a little bit over 100 dudes.
So we're coming up on this is what?
Year 7
for 7, yeah.
Yep, year 7.
So how many guys?
100 dudes right now, right over 100.
And how many was last year?
Last year we had just under 80.
And the year before?
So we had a few instances where we lost whole team. We had to terminate whole teams basically. Yeah. But year before, I want to say we had 40 to 50.
Yeah.
40 to
so
50.
Let's talk a little bit about recruiting, because this is, I'm talking on the recruiting panel at SolarCon, and this is often, in my experience, it's one of the most underestimated. It's like when a rookie goes with you on a door.
Yeah.
And he's like, that was easy. And you're like, it's not easy, brother.
Yeah.
I just laid him down. So let's talk about your experience in recruiting, because obviously, over the last few years, you've become incredibly successful. And last year you ran, it was how many 4,300 accounts or?
Yep.
So, and that's a great feat. That's amazing. Right. Yeah. So, let's talk about recruiting over the last couple of years and what you've learned from that, and why are you a good recruiter? What's helped you recruit?
Well, I'll actually start by telling you the absolute truth. I'm a terrible recruiter. When it comes to recruiting, I'm actually not very good.
Okay.
My own stepbrother sold pest control for 3 years, and this is his first year with me, and he's like, dude, why did you not get me sooner?
Yeah.
Right? So I have this issue where I don't want to be the guy that's like forcing something on someone, but I will absolutely accept anyone, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, and I will go dump my heart and soul into making sure you get it.
Attraction rather than promotion.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But like what I have learned about recruiting, and I've seen, I don't think there's a better recruiter in the world than Todd Peterson. I truly don't believe.
Todd's the GOAT.
I don't believe there is. Like, and that's biased for sure. Casey's amazing. Brad's amazing. All these, but like I've seen Todd recruit, in different aspects of the word. But what recruiting is to me, recruiting is telling a story that inspires and that's true. Right. And then being able to honestly offer that exact same path or a similar path to somebody else, and communicating that and relaying that message to them, right? Like it really is like recruiting's a sale, obviously, but it's 100%. way more personal. Like a sale, you're going and selling them. Yeah, it's very emotional, and you're going and basically pitching them not to buy solar or smart home. You're pitching them to spend the next 5 years under your wing, under your guidance, and under what you know to work.
Yep.
Which is a really big deal to me. And that's why I'm very, I wouldn't say timid, right? But I'm like, if someone's really stoked where they're at, I don't see it as my obligation to go and get them less stoked on that and try and get them more stoked on what I do.
I vibe with that.
Right. So I've lost a lot of recruits because, my own stepbrother, like you can imagine how many recruits I've lost because that's someone I know really well. and I knew the situation he was in, and I explained it, and I'll always warn people, but if they don't want to trust me, I'm not going to go convince. I'll let them go see that I told the truth, because that's how you get loyalty, right? Like, more important than recruiting is retaining. And if your expectations are all the way up here and your reality's here, you lose everybody. But if your expectations are here and your reality's here, your reality is higher than your expectations, you keep your people.
I vibe with that.
So I don't mean to not answer your question, but I think telling a story is really important. You have to understand your story's enough. And if you don't think your story's good enough to recruit to, someone else has a story in the situation that you're in. Like the year I sold 26, I recruited 7 bodies. And I didn't have a really cool story, but I had Casey's story. You know what I'm saying? And Brad's story.
What's interesting, so I just came up for a leadership retreat, and they had, I had never heard of him before, but it's a guy named Dan Young. And he's in the, his bio is like, he's, a little older, professional speaker. But when he was talking about stuff, he was talking about sales, but recruiting is sales.
Yeah.
And what he said is, exactly. It's really interesting because what you're saying, you actually did answer the question for anybody who knows recruiting. But what Dan, the way that he put it was, have a story, know your story, because the story is what sells people. Because what they want to know is, can you do it?
Yeah.
Have you done it? Are you doing it?
Yeah.
And that's part of the story is like, hey, listen, for you, just the story that I'm tracking back is, hey, I was a kid that, had parents that loved him, that didn't have a lot of money, and I found an opportunity and I made it, right? And this is where I'm at now. And then, are you currently doing it? You're currently doing it. You're running org. And then the next thing is, can I do it too? That's what the recruit's going to ask is, can I do it too? And then the next thing is, do you have a system? Like, what's the system for me to do it?
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, I think, the beautiful thing about Vivint, I was just talking to, there's a bunch of us from my company that came from Vivint. And, we all love and respect Vivint. Obviously, it's one of the most amazing companies. Just, bro, listen, the Vivint training manual is online. Yeah. And that is the greatest door-to-door manifesto ever written in history, dude. But the education that you get from Vivint is just, it's amazing. But the processes that I got from Vivint, the how do you do it?
Yeah.
Because this is what happens is guys can tell a great story and they can show them how to knock a door, but they can't show them how to build or how to run or how to operate. Yeah. And that's one of the beautiful things about Vivint. I think Legacy as well. And there's other organizations that do these things great too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I love the way you put it. You're telling your story. I can show you how to do it. You can do it too. And this is the system that we have to put into it.
Yeah. And then on like team building in general, again, retaining is right there with recruiting. If you're 100%. A great recruiter and a terrible retainer, good luck. Like that's a headache and a half and a very long career of rebuilding. But retaining is really, that to me is like an art form, and retaining has to do, because it's a very personal level with people. You also have to fulfill on all their other needs, and truly, like, the best advice I ever got, and the reason I'm so grateful that I came up the way I did around the people I did, is because the number one thing hammered into my head, not only hammered into my head, but then displayed right in front of my eyes, was treat your people like gold.
Yeah.
And Todd Peterson did that to a fault. Literally, treat your people like gold. And how you do something is how you do everything. All these one-liners, not only were they said, but I witnessed very early, it does not matter what you say, it matters what you do.
Yep.
Right? But if what you say is in line with what you do, you're probably a pretty good person to follow. Yeah. Does that make sense? Because I see 100%. A lot of people that say a lot of things, and a lot of my guys are like, thank you so much for like hosting this event. I'm like, don't tell me thank you. Show me. Just show up, be here the whole time, and enjoy it. Yeah. Right? And then you have guys that leave early. It's like, okay. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I do. It's an interesting industry. One of my favorite people in our industry is Ty Williams. He's Vivint, Sunrun now, solar. Mm-hmm. He was a purebred all the way until they bought it. But he's just his mind. He's such a genius mind, man, the way that he puts stuff. But, he did a thing. It was called How Close is Too Close. And it's talking about with our team members and like the people that we pour ourselves into. And it's like, it's a very interpersonal business. Yeah. And the retaining side of it is, because what guys do, I don't know if you've ever read Crucial Conversations, but what people do is they fail to have the crucial conversation because of some fear that they have of what you're going to say or what you're going to do or what the circumstance. And then what they do is they tell themselves kind of a clever little story about what would happen, and then off they go. They're down in the rabbit hole in Never Land. And so the retaining aspect and like growing as a leader and like gaining knowledge and never letting anyone catch your leadership cap
includes understanding the psychology of yourself and understanding. And, you know, when I tell people I do therapy, it's not just for me, it's to become a better leader. If I understand my mind, I understand my people's minds. And the cool thing for me the last couple of years is I've created this environment where I've had a lot of people come and have those crucial conversations with me because they feel comfortable and safe. Yeah. And that's ultimately retaining, is like coming to that level with your people.
Yeah. And the like total off distance, that's also the secret to relationships from what I know. 100%. And I don't think I'm a master, but I ask for advice in everything. If I know someone who's been married 50 years and they seem happy, I'll ask them advice. And like, you can't go have this preconceived notion of the direction the conversation is going to go before you have it. You need to go and have it. Right. And it's the same with your people. And you also need to be in a situation where your partner or your rep or your business partner feel comfortable enough to come to you with these uncomfortable conversations and work through it. 100%. So I love that. Yeah.
Have you ever read Crucial Conversations?
Long time ago. Yep.
Dude.
Probably should reread that one.
You should, dude. So everybody that I tell them, I say, when you read it, you're going to be reading it and you're going to be like, oh, they wrote a book about me. Because it's like,
it's so relatable.
It's so relatable. Yeah. It's like human nature, man. But like, you know, understanding clever stories and making fool's choices was great for me.
Yeah.
So listen, I know we're running a little short on time, dude. I want to talk also really quick about, you know, I just had Doug Cartwright come down to my office and, it was crazy because he got up and, man, you know what I love about Casey? He's so emotional, dude. I went to Knockstar a couple years ago and Casey was just up on stage, just bawling.
Yeah.
Just talking about like, and I just love it. I love that he's so vulnerable because it gives me like, and I texted him and, you know, he cries on podcasts and I'm like, dude, your vulnerability gives me the strength to be authentic and to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
So Doug came down because it just does, man. Doug came down and he gives this presentation on alchemy and I'm peeling all my layers back, you know, with like getting into myself. And like, I got up in front of correlation. I'm just like bawling.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is amazing. So, you know, I want to talk about a little bit really quick, maybe a couple minutes about alchemy, what you guys are doing with that. Yeah. I just joined in. So
dude, and I'm so stoked to have you. I think to preface, business is a spiritual game. And that gets kind of lost and forgotten in the mix of everything a lot of the time. And one thing that's so cool about Alchemy, so Alchemy Sales Coaching, everyone that listens to my podcast will have heard the ads and they've heard Doug talk about it. But it's a sales coaching platform. But more than that, I'll explain kind of the multifacets of it. It's a community where everyone is in a very similar situation. And in that situation, you typically don't focus on the things that actually matter. You get distracted by other things, which in essence hurts what you're trying to go and do. It hurts your production.
Yeah.
Like Doug always says, you don't have a sales problem, you have a you problem, and it's affecting your sales. So that's like the main focus and the main benefit of that group is we literally work through dude, we do all the woo-woo stuff like this, then that's pretty frowned upon. And Bodie Gardner's even started to get into yoga. It's the craziest thing. Moved out to Puerto Rico. I went out and visited him, got into yoga, like apologized for something he did years ago. And Bodie used to be like this freaking just hard ass.
Bodie's known as a tough ass.
Yeah. And like, dude, he's like apologizing to me at lunch for something that he said to make my cousin uncomfortable or like feel like he was being rude to him. I'm like, whoa. But like we dive into all that. Like dude, there's no point in anything. There's no point in making $1 million. There's no point in being successful. There's no point in being the man if you're not happy.
Yeah.
At all.
100%.
And like for me, and I know there's a lot more to it, and Doug would probably say it different than I would, but for me, and it's different for everyone. And when I coach people, like focusing on like, dude, yes, like systems are important, all of that, but your state and your story are 90% of it.
Yeah.
Right? Your strategy is such a small percentage. And we spend all day, all week, all month, all year focusing on strategy, which is 10% of what actually matters. 90% of it is your state. How are you how do you show up? And your story. What are you saying in your head? And like I've been the guy where I'm dominating, but what's going through my head is not good.
Same boat.
You know what I'm saying?
I do, 100%.
So that like the reason alchemy is so cool and like so unique in our industry specifically, this is for door-to-door people, like we go and put a very, very, very heavy focus on interpersonal. And now we, after a year of doing it, have the data to show that it goes and it will dramatically improve your production. There's guarantees within it. Get on a call with Doug and ask him. Like we now have the data to show that. And it's been blowing up from there. So it's very cool, man. So
yeah.
I'm stoked to have you. You're a massive ad. And that is what makes alchemy cool. I love Doug. Doug does not make alchemy cool. I do not make alchemy cool.
It's community.
Jay Shaw does not make alchemy cool. Doug, me, Jay Shaw, Cruiser, you, Jason, Baby Kit, that makes alchemy cool.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. I vibe with that. And it's a level of like in increasing your personal production. I can be in my beautiful world. I was just talking with Seth, my good friend, about this weekend, is I can be in this amazing world that I've created. You know, beautiful daughter, amazing relationship with her, wonderful marriage, amazing relationship with my wife's bouncing around, happy, and business is good, money's and stuff, and like the team's doing good or bad. You know, it's just, and I'm just sitting there in the very heart of it on my couch with just dark cloud.
Exactly.
Like, you know, and it's like, and that's a lack. And, you know, I'm a strong believer in the law of attraction. And what you think about is what you get, because it's what you do. And it's like, that's why I've been so focused on that area of my life, because I have become successful, but I feel like I've hit 1/10 of the success. And if I want the other 90% of it, that's spiritual success and mental success, and the rest will absolutely follow.
Exactly. And I've had good examples, and that's why I take I think it's so important, because I've seen the Caseys and the Todds. And
well, it's right there in front of us, brother.
Exactly. It's crazy.
So Zaza, man, this is we're running out of time. I could chop it up with you all day,
I know,
dude.
That flew by. I'm sorry. I talk a lot, bro.
No,
I apologize.
I vibed with it. I think that's what I loved hearing it. And you're an extremely impressive man. What you've done, and you know, like I think a big part of it is that you've actually been able to take advantage of things that other people wouldn't take advantage of. And obviously you're an incredibly hard worker, but your knowledge base and who you are, as you know, just starting to get to know you, spiritual, mental, right? What you're doing in the door-to-door space, having your podcast. I mean, you know, obviously you're a massive part of the industry and a positive force. And I think that we need so much more of that. So, you know, I've just in this conversation and just being in alchemy, I've gained a lot of respect for you, man. So
thank you, brother.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you for doing this co-branding thing with me. This is
It'll be fun.
Super dope. I'm excited, man.
We'll do another one for sure.
100%.
I'll host it because I want to hear the whole story, man.
Let's
for
do
real.
it. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Zaza.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, bro.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. As always, it was a blast for me. I hope you got something out of this. If you got something out of this video of value, share this with a friend, and please go show your love. We're on all streaming platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Any ratings, comments, likes, shares, they go a very long way, and they make it so I can keep doing these things for you, and I would appreciate it greatly. So please go share with a friend. Until next time.